Welcome back to part 2 of this episode of Firefighters and Fire Trucks Getting Ice Cream with our guest today, Anthony Kastros. It was a short drive down here to Scooper's Ice Cream, but we had a lot of great conversations in just that short amount of time. So come along with Andoni and myself to sit down at a rickety picnic table at Scooper's Ice Cream to enjoy some milkshakes and finish up our conversation on Calm the Chaos and other great stuff that we're all trying to do out there for this fire service. Go enjoy a shake.
Yeah, love it. Look how this thing is so thick. You can spackle
yeah, it's probably going to be problematic, is my guess.
But if you suck too hard, the back of your head will implode.
This table's kind of wobbly.
I love it. I love the whole thing. It's old school. Everything's old school here. The table's wobbly. The milkshakes are thick.
Yeah.
Old school fire engine, old school drive-through.
Well, once again, you know, the owner of the fire engine, we're talking about his beard, and it'd be interesting to watch him eat the ice cream too.
Yeah.
The Billy Goldfeder episode, he's got to turn the spoon upside down.
Does he?
It's pretty classic. I'm assuming he's not within grooming standards either.
Yeah, I don't think he's in any grooming standards, unless Chewbacca's the fire chief. I think he's out of the grooming standards. Yeah. So thanks for having me, brother.
Yeah.
So command, it's the big thing. You know, it's. We're seeing an exponentially huge surge of people retiring, right? I think it's pension programs are good. COVID is out there. People are retiring at younger ages.
Yeah.
And I was just meeting with some chiefs here locally yesterday. And nobody in the country can keep up with the demand. Now we're having a hard time recruiting just firefighters. Are you seeing that anywhere?
We are hiring firefighter EMTs right now because we can't find enough paramedics. Yeah. And everybody's doing lateral testing right now, trying to scoop other people.
Right, everyone's poaching everybody else's firefighter.
Right.
So that's happening, and you can't get people qualified to take the test. You can't get enough people to fill the vacancies after the test is done. They can't get any people on the list.
Yeah.
And then the command and tactics element, it's huge because you get these great people, but they just don't have the depth of experience that you need, you know, to have a battalion chief or a company officer that you can be comfortable with. I mean, when I retired, I had entire companies that were the Pro-B engineer, Pro-B firefighter, Pro-B captain. Sometimes you had Pro-B battalion chiefs running those Pro-B battalions. It was all over the board. So I think the stuff that we're doing, like and you're doing, everyone's trying to contribute to train is critical, you know, especially the command piece and the tactical, because that's the stuff that'll kill you.
Right.
You know, so.
Well, and it goes back to the other one we're talking about, right, when we pulled up, the managing employee fires.
Right.
You know, that's all part of it too.
Absolutely.
You know, and you contributed to the book with one of your case studies that you had early on as a battalion chief. And I think it goes back to younger captains, younger chief officers not having that slide carousel.
Well, they don't have a slide carousel, and they won't even know what a slide carousel is. But they call it a PowerPoint presentation.
Yeah, I don't know what we're going to call it.
They don't have a PowerPoint presentation in their head. But you're right, and those employee fires can be just as traumatic and detrimental to a career or to a life as a fire, structure fire. And folks don't have the people skills to look you in the eye, to shake your hand, but also to dive into conflict. They don't lean into conflict and say, you know what, I'm going to stop that from happening. They don't recognize the issue. They don't even see it, let alone know how to deal with it if they did see it.
Yeah.
And it's unbelievable. So you talk to some of the fire chiefs around the country in these larger departments, and they're bogged down with personnel issues that should have been handled at the company level. They're on the fire chief's desk of a large fire department. Yeah. So
Well, and if you have those small conversations, right, you put out the small fires, it helps preventing the larger ones.
Exactly. Yeah, that's exactly it. That's why I think you're spot on with your approach, the tactics, strategy of personnel issues, that whole mindset, because we understand that. We understand what size up is. We understand what it is to develop a tactical plan, but you just apply it to a person or an individual in your crew.
Well, just like your class with the Calm the Chaos, or any classes that I think all of us are out there teaching, it came from seeing a deficit somewhere, seeing a problem.
Right.
And I was doing a Captain's Academy probably twice a year, and we would do, it was called our coach program, Company Officer Assessment Center Help Program, preparing them for the captain's test, a day of simulations, a day of employee counseling, teaching demonstrations, and oral interviews and stuff, right? And teaching demonstration, I was teaching the 8-step method, right, of counseling, like that we kind of spread around the fire service for a while, but we were seeing that we were still having people struggling with that portion of that, and I think just changing it to firefighter mentality and terminology, and that you're trying to save them, right? That was the other big change. Instead of like, you're here to get the employee disciplined for something they did, which we all know. Most of those things that go bad, it's a good person having a bad day or did something bad that day.
Yeah, exactly.
And if you're looking at it from a perspective, like my job as a firefighter is to make it better. That's from the company officer and the battalion chief level.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah, now speaking of battalion chiefs, I think there's a lot of great people out there, but they don't understand the role of battalion chief when they're aspiring for it. They want to be a battalion chief, but they don't know. I was talking to a chief yesterday. A lot of the chiefs who are aspiring to become a battalion chief don't know what the battalion chief job entails. They have no clue. And it's because when you want to be a lieutenant or captain, your whole career is spent around lieutenants and captains every day at the firehouse. But no one knows what the BCs really do, because he's over in his office, or she's over in her office, going and doing God knows what. And so the knowledge of what that really means is lost on a lot of people. And I tell them it's about bridging the tactical gap, just like on a fire.
Right.
You got to bridge the tactical gap, the distance between the crews working and the incident commander. Well, in the firehouse, in the day-to-day operations, there's a distance between the crews and the stations and the chief officers in the administration. That's the strategic level. The crews are tasked. The tactical battalion chiefs have to be out in the field, engaging with the crews. They're the ambassador, the interpreter between those two levels.
Right.
So they have to not forget where they came from, and be credible and train with their crews and have those great relationships, work out with the crews and train them and mentor them, but also be able to go to headquarters and know what's going on in the big picture, contribute to that, and then bring the message back and forth and tell the chief, hey, chief, this won't work. Tell the troops, hey, we're doing this and this is why. And so I tell aspiring BCs, you have to have the most miles on your vehicle and the most minutes on your phone, because you're highly mobile out there.
Right.
It's just like on our command class. You have to be highly hostile, agile, and mobile. And hostile means you own your space. Don't apologize for being a battalion chief. Don't hide. Don't wish you didn't promote. Be part of the management team. Be agile. Be able to think about where you came from, but where we're going as a department with the chiefs. And then mobile. You can't just hide in your office behind your keyboard and talk about reports and inspections that are missing all day long. Everybody you lead by emails. You got to be out with them and mentoring them and coaching them. And I think a lot of BCs don't recognize they have a huge opportunity to be the leader and mentor and training officer for their battalion, and not relegated to a small, overworked training division. Nobody has a training division like they should in this country. Nobody. No, everyone's understaffed. But if the BCs were to engage, who better knows their captains? Who better knows their lieutenants? Who better knows their crews? Who better knows and has that day-to-day, day-in, day-out relationship on helping them grow and learn? And then who better to develop trust than the battalion chief when it comes to command and tactical training, so that when you run a fire and you're on a scene, you can say, I trust my BC because I know he or she trained me and I know what their capabilities are and they know what they're talking about. So if we're going to go offensive, I trust. Or if we get in trouble, I know that the IC will get us out because they know what they're doing. That for me was probably the biggest compliment I ever got. Was from a salty old captain as he was retiring. He goes, you know what? I always knew that if we ever got in trouble, you'd get us out. And that was like, whoa! That was a big, a big compliment. And the other one that stood out at the end of my career, very end, was one of my captains said, you know what? You were in it all the way to the end. Because my last day, when we had a big barbecue, I woke up in the morning, I smell I smell something barbecuing. I'm like, this is wonderful. What is that smell? It was lamb. My guys, because I'm Greek,
Right.
they brought on a portable spit and they roasted a whole lamb on a spit in the apparatus room, starting before I woke up. And we had like 250 people come. They brought a bunch of food and all this Greek food, and it was epic. And one of the things that one of my guys said was, you know what, you were all in all the time, because I had my like the week before I did a multi-company drill, and I was going to retire the following week, but I'm like, you know what, I can't stop. And you'd asked about that. What led to the Calm the Chaos curriculum? It was that triple fatal in 2006. It was a heartbreaking gut punch to all of us, and that I'm sure that's why you do what you do. There was something that made you go, you know what, I want to fill that void that's out there.
Yeah. Well, I got trapped in a garage on a wildland fire 15 years ago.
There you go.
And that's how training for me started.
There you go.
And I felt that there was things that we were doing culturally, traditional, tactics-wise that put us in some bad spots. And then obviously there's a ton of mistakes that I made and human factors that go along with it. But
that's what gave birth to the passion that you have now.
You're right.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I wonder do we look badass in here? So tell me about some badass fires on the suckline thing. Mm-hmm.
It's from Scoopers. Don't worry. It's good. So, yeah.
You have you even taken a sip?
I've had 3.
You've had 3?
I'm just listening to the
This is so good.
Aaron Zamzow that's doing like all the firefighter fitness stuff out there and all that, and he goes, when are we doing the ice cream show? I go, I'm not going out for like non-fat yogurt or none of that stuff.
Yeah, firefighters and fire engines getting kale.
Yeah.
That doesn't have the same ring to it.
CrossFit, cross-fat. Look, I'm not doing it, but I was like, I'll get to you eventually, man. I just mess with them so much. It's so funny.
Good stuff. Good stuff.
So when you're talking about like the BC behind their desk and all that, it's the same way with the strategy and tactics for employee fires. Mm-hmm. We talk about the size up process, mm-hmm. and I show them a picture of a 3-story apartment on fire, and I have somebody in the class like, okay, give me a size up, and they go, all right, dispatch, engine 1's on scene, and then they go through the smoke in the building and all that, and I go, so here's the thing, like your size up on your employee fire is the exact same thing as your size up on a real fire, right? And I said, what was the first thing you said? And they always talk about, oh, well, the building. I go, no, what was the first thing you said? They said, dispatch, engine 1's on scene. I said, that's the first part of it. You got to show up. You can't manage your employee fires while you're in your office watching TV or whatever, and it's you have to do that management by walking around. Like that's when you catch some of the best things that are going wrong and right is by management. You got to go out there and see what's going on.
There. Yeah.
So that's where it all starts.
Yeah.
And then, okay, now the building. Right. You got to get to know your people, right? How are they made? How are they constructed?
What's their construction?
Who's inside them?
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. Like, because their values and their ethics and all those, their culture, all that is their values the valuables that they want to save.
Yeah.
Even if those are being threatened, those are some of the hardest employee fires to fight.
Yeah.
Because they're being those things are being threatened.
Exactly.
From the fire.
Yeah.
So
I think I love the correlation. It's so natural. And fire geeks like us, we love that stuff. We'll just play with that all day long. But I love the correlation, and you're right. And I would, when I teach counseling, like in our assessment center workshops, we talk about the counseling scenario and that you're sizing up that person, like you said. And I talk it in terms of like a medical aid call. You got dispatched. You were dispatched to an elderly engineer who's pissed. Were you dispatched to a new firefighter who can't throw a ladder? What were you dispatched to? Well, those are the symptoms. You get on scene and you have to get the history, meds, and allergies.
Right.
What is the history of this individual? Even from if it's a 22-year-old kid, the history might be how they were raised. If it's a 52-year-old salty firefighter, maybe they've taken the promotional test for engineer or captain 27 times and they're pissed off. Meds, what helps them perform at their optimum, and then allergies, what pisses them off, what triggers them.
Right.
And so it's the same thing, I would say. And so you just like you assess a female for chest pain, you're going to get history, meds, allergies. You're going to look around, do they smoke and all that, and you're going to see the same. But what I think happens is our officers don't have those skills. They just don't know how to assess for those personal issues. So I think your new book, and thank you for letting me be part of it, is going to be a huge asset. And the assessment center class, which based on the assessment center book from fire engineering, it's the second edition is like 3 times the size of the first edition, because we learned so much not only from my own personal career, but also from teaching thousands of firefighters over the years around the country. And we just kept adding to it. And we came out with that online because of COVID. Well, before COVID, it was in production because we knew that's where the fire service is going, to the online training. So that's been out for over a year. We have a company officer track, a chief officer track, and then 100 sets Sims lab. And that's just taken off. And so we're excited because the next one, the Calm the Chaos online, is going to be huge. It's going to be like 32 hours plus the 100 Sims.
Yeah.
And so that's the springboard to the Train the Trainer. Because we go to fire departments, we go to them, we dive into their SOGs and staffing. And our objective is to leave them with an 18-person cadre of instructors. Or if it's regional, some departments share it.
Right.
3 or 4 or 5 or 6 departments, if they're all small, we'll share those 18 spots. And it culminates a week long, but it culminates with hands-on command and tactical training. And historically, it's always been tabletops or simulations.
Don't be messing with my tabletop.
Oh, hold on a second. I love the tabletop. When I was at Metro, we built a command training center, and one of the facets was a tabletop. And that was, Don Abbott came and helped us develop that, right? Love the tabletops. Well, but you get guys that didn't feel like, well, I don't want to come play with your Tonka trucks. I don't want to come and play with your Matchbox toys. I'm like, would you shut up and just get over it?
They're training aids. They're not toys.
Yeah, exactly. Well,
just because my son gets to play with them when we're not using them for training doesn't mean anything.
The problem is I also set up a base camp for an entire base camp so people can understand the flow of base camp for a veg fire, wildland fire.
Right.
And I bought about 50 little porta potties. So guess what? After every 4 day, I come back to work. Guess where all the porta potties were? They're in the helicopter. They're in the they're in the tents. They're in the ICP on top of the ICP. So it was like, and then one of the of course it was B Shift shot a video on porta potties using those porta potties, real close up porta potties by B Shift.
So you have a B Shift problem at your department too? That's so weird. I'm a B Shifter right now, and it's really weird.
I started off in B Shift. That's why I needed years of therapy after that before I could move to another shift. But no, the tabletops and the sims are critical, but what we're finding is the real learning is happening when we go to them on their training ground and pump smoke into the scenario, SCBAs, turnouts, radios, chaos, we're throwing scenarios and people at them, we're doing maydays, we're doing divisions and groups, and it's like, aha. It's like after like one scenario, each scenario is about 45 minutes between beginning and then after action. They're like, after the first scenario, like, it all makes sense now. But they were in class all week.
Right.
But as soon as they do it hands-on, it's like the light comes on. It's like, why have we been doing this the whole time? And it's not rocket science. It's ICS.
Right.
But it's doing it proactively, not waiting until, I tell people, ICS is like a parachute. If you wait till you hit the ground to pull the chute, it's not going to work very well for you. And too many incident commanders in America are getting behind the incident, getting bogged down, they start drowning, and then they might think about setting up a division or a group to manage their span of control, and it's just too late by then. But they don't recognize the importance of bridging that tactical gap we talked about on the way over here, and that's what prevents the NOSH 5 from coming into alignment and bad things happening. But it also allows you to have better situational awareness, so you can make a grab if there's an opportunity. So,
well, even just the switch of it, the division or the group supervisor being the second in captain to that IDLH area or working area.
Huge.
That was a huge change because we would have the first in captain be the division soup, division 2 or whatever on an apartment fire, center hallway. And it's like, okay, you're running the division. Well, they're task saturated, task overloaded.
Absolutely.
And that was the biggest change that we looked going forward. And just those 3 terms that you use, that initiate, assume, or assign.
Yeah, exactly.
That was huge for us as well.
Good. Well, I appreciate you saying that because it was. We learned that the hard way because after that triple fatal, everything was on the table. There was no sacred cow of anything.
Right.
Strategy, tactics, staffing, response levels, SOGs, ICS, training. Everything was on the table. There was no more like, well, we've always done this. No, we haven't always done it this way. I don't care.
Right.
And at the time, my department was a large 40-station department, very busy, but didn't have SOGs. We just merged to become this 40-station department. And so I myself and another battalion chief, 2 new BCs, we took on the SOGs. We said, we'll finish processing these. And of course, the old assistant chief in charge goes, fine, here, take them. Right. So they gave us some latitude to develop the incident, or the command training center. And then years later, after El Camino and such, we were able to use. They let us host fire engineering to come out and do the video series, which was
awesome.
And so, but you're spot on. You can't have the first. These are the things we learned. You can't have the first in company officer to a hazard zone be the division or group supervisor because they're too task saturated.
Right.
So let them get to work. They're initiating the task, getting work done. Maybe 2 companies need to get work done. Maybe it's an apartment fire on a 3rd floor and you need 2 companies just humping hose. But as soon as you can, backfill them with that tactical supervisor to bridge that tactical gap as soon as possible.
Yeah.
And then your radio traffic drops down.
Well, it even helps with just traffic. Just if I'm Division 2 as the first captain, I'm helping my firefighter drag hose up the stairwell, everything else. And as soon as we hit the 2nd floor, the BC's calling me for a canter report.
Give me canter
and
report.
I'm like,
yeah.
And as soon as I'm doing that, I'm overmodulating.
Yeah.
Right? I just wasted all my breath saying everything I just said. And he
Yeah.
goes, I can't understand a word you're saying. Say it over again. And
Every time. Conditions, I'm pissed at you. Actions, I want to kill you. Needs, I need you to shut up and let me do my job.
We just got here.
Yeah,
Give
we
us
just
a
got
second.
here.
Yeah.
Well, I have a great video of a three-story center hall, 3-alarm fire, and I tried to make the first captain division. Because the one I did make division wasn't answering the radio. I'm like, so this guy on the fire floor gives me this beautiful can report, Shakespearean sonnet. It's like he's all tap tap. This thing's cranking. Come in. Engine 101, here's what we got. And he was beautiful. I go, you know what? You're so awesome. I'm going to promote you, field promotion, be Division 3. And he goes, negative. I'm not Division 3. I'm humping hose. I'm task level. Leave me alone. And it was beautiful.
And this is past the training that you guys have already done.
Oh, yeah.
So he's like, no.
Because I was drowning. I was like, I'm drowning. I tried to, and he's like, nope. He was, I was a combative patient drowning. And he's like, no. And it was perfect. So all those nuances of when to set up a division group, how to set it up, whether it's a division or a group, and all that stuff has been just constantly churning around and evolving, and it's been a lot of fun. It's been a lot of fun.
Me and Paul Strong from Washington, we co-taught a class here 2 years ago, and it was basically called like the blind spots, and you look at every single one of those levels from the task level to the tactical to the strategic level. They all have different things they see, and at the same time, they all have blind spots of stuff that they don't see.
Yep.
And lining up those things, those objectives in the same manner,
Yep.
understanding that the firefighter, the task level, they're seeing what's going on inside with the thermal camera, with the rollover, or whatever they're doing search-wise.
Yep.
But they didn't get the 360 initially,
Right.
or they don't see what it's doing from the roof outside.
Right,
And
exactly.
every single one of those has a different perspective.
Exactly. And so the task level could be zero visibility, smoke in front of my face, right? They're not going to see vent point ignition out the door they came in a minute ago, right? They're not going to see potential collapse or fire underneath them or whatever. And that's what the tactical sees, right? And that tactical sees that is in that sweet spot between the strategic, who's too far away, and the task, who's too close, can't see the forest through the trees. They're in that sweet spot. And yeah, they have to dive in and sniff around the task a little bit, but then come back out and take a look and keep that situational awareness. And that's why I tell them it's kind of like we talked about earlier. They have to be hostile, agile, and mobile. You got to have strong command presence, own your division or your group, have the mental agility to be thinking in the next, and then be mobile in and out and around the area you're working and to see your crews and account for them. And to dovetail on what you said, task is in the we call it in the now. I'm thinking about stretching this hose right now, throwing on this BA, making this door, throwing this ladder, searching this room right now. I'm in the now. So what do we have? Auditory exclusion, tunnel vision. In the next is the tactical. Next, I need a second hose line. Next, I need a secondary search. Next, I'm rotating these crews.
Right.
Next, I need to coordinate with vent to see it, to make sure that they're on top of it. And then the IC at the strategic is in the then what if. Then I need a second alarm. Then I need to set up medical. What if I have a mayday?
Right.
And so what I've seen from experience and also from seeing it in my department and seeing it around the country is when you don't have the tactical soups handling the next, the IC gets sucked into the task level. The task level is where the gravity is. That's the nucleus of the incident.
Right.
So it sucks the IC into it, and they start getting sucked in. And even something as simple as, I'm just going to hit utilities real quick on my lap. No, you're not. Don't hit utilities on your lap. Don't do a lap. If you're the IC, have your crews or company officers do a lap and give you feedback. And so you can stay out ahead of this thing. And the problem is I think we develop bad habits, but through good luck on house fires. The house fire is typically more forgiving.
Right.
A room of contents. I don't need to set up a division or group. I'm just going to have all these 3 or 4 companies report to me. Okay, fine. What's going to happen when it's a 2-alarm fire with an apartment or 3 apartments going to victims?
Right.
And if you don't develop those habits and skills, and everyone understands the tactical space, the tactical gap, the NIOSH 5, thinking about victim profiling on every call, then they're not going to magically be good at it, at 2 a.m. on a dark and stormy night when you're screwed.
Right.
And so, what have you seen? Because I love how innovative all of your teaching is and all of your systems, and whether it's this or the tabletops or the tactical strategy of the counseling stuff, driven to be an engineer, all that kind. I love that
Right.
stuff. What have you seen in like the past 10 years is the biggest difference in kind of the fire service of today versus 10 years ago?
Well, I think that COVID's definitely changed it a lot. I mean, obviously, like the Zoom training, that's probably the best thing that we've gotten out of this recently, is the understanding, like, hey, we can do some of this training in an online format or a video format.
Right.
Right now, I think we're task saturated with that, and we're like, hey, well, let's get past that. But in the future, going forward, I mean, you're doing video production now with your stuff. That's going to be the next thing that propels us forward.
Yeah.
And the technology, I mean, we're using tablet command.
Sure.
So even just preparing a captain for a captain's test, how to, do a tactical worksheet, that's no longer there.
Yeah.
Yeah. So a lot of that's changed, or even just digital simulation.
Yeah.
I mean, a tabletop was a tool for Don Abbott because at that time,
Nobody else was doing it.
digital simulation didn't exist.
Yeah, right.
But there's still a need for some of that old school stuff.
I think some of the best training we had was the tabletops, because you have dialogue. You're sitting there talking. You're physically moving rigs around, and that's what they did in World War II.
Yeah.
And it worked.
Yeah. Even if it's just drawn with a stick in the sand for them, it was
Exactly.
all.
And that's what we did.
Right.
The wildland fires.
Uh-huh.
The little sand and the thing. But no, I agree with you, and I think we put out the Fire Sim Lab 12 episodes. We're in the middle of the Fire Leadership Lab 12 episodes. Those are great, but the online stuff is really fun. And I being old school, I was resistant. I'm like, you know what? I don't want to do online training. I don't want to, God, it's got to be hands-on. It's got to be in person, and that's true.
Yeah.
Hands-on's still the best training. That said, you can. I see the benefit, having done this now, that an individual can learn at their rate of learning. If they're in a class, you've got 50 students, let's say, they're all absorbing at a different rate, and you have no clue how they're doing. A student individually can play something over and over and pause it and reflect on it and say, I'm tapped out, I'm tired, and you can't do that in class. And what we've done is we've embedded a lot of quizzes, a lot of interactive timed exercises for like size ups and arrival reports and tactical decisions, counseling and all that stuff. And we're finding that this generation responds really, really well to that. So you have to adjust, what your approach is, not just the content, but the style and the approach. And I went from being not even a skeptic, resistant to online trainings, and now it's like, this is what we're doing. And we're certainly still doing a ton of hands-on training, but I like the fact that we can reach a lot more people. So for example, the assessment center training, now that that's online, we're going to start talking to departments about using that in officer preparation. Like, for example, have you seen it too? Departments are hesitant to provide promotional officer development training. They'll provide all kinds of stuff on duty, whatever. But when it comes to, you're kind of on your own. If you want to take that class, you're on your own. And they're hesitant to host it because, not everybody can make it, and you're going to get grievances from the union and from individuals who were on duty and who couldn't get time off, and and you're going to have this whole myriad of issues. So departments don't even touch helping people promote. It's like, oh my God, that's a critical element of this job. Is that we wonder why we have all these personnel problems and fireground issues and firehouse issues. It's because we suck at succession planning. And what we're going to do is say, look, if they take this assessment center class, it's not just for the test, it's for the job.
Right.
And give it to them, provide it to them, if you give it to 20 people, 20 firefighters, guys and gals, and you make it available to the 20 people who are eligible to take your company officer test, and you're going to get 5 that go through it thoroughly multiple times. You're going to get 10 that kind of fumble far through it, and you're going to get 5 that don't even open it.
Yeah.
You know, and we're already seeing that. And so, but at least you're giving them the equal opportunity.
Right.
And then it's on them to take advantage of it, and the cream will rise to the top every time. So I think that's going to be a model for the future, because departments just don't have the bandwidth to do the training for everybody. They just don't have the bandwidth to put the people in the seats and do the logistics of planning a class and take companies out of service and who's going to go and who's not going and on duty and off duty and all that stuff. So, yeah.
When the cream does ride to the top, my cream is coming to the bottom. So you ready to head back?
We got to get you back to teach your class.
Yeah, so let's do that.
All right, brother.
You ready?
Yeah.
All right, here we go.
I didn't say you. I'm talking about somebody else. I'm talking about what she did to me. The name of this poem is called She Left Me. She left me because I claimed broke. Now the radio's fired up with all the gun smoke. This is no joke for my disabled mind. What's being said and left behind. If all you heard was one word you didn't like, why would you pick up a pen before grabbing a mic? It was your choice. My voice made everybody snappy. Wired words to entrap me. I'm no big kid of this world. You asked one you thought was my girl. If you planted me, my girl, you have to know she's real. She gave up on love. Now how should I feel? Keep us in your prayers, close to your heart. She cared for money, whether I do or not. Thank you.